1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, everyone. We're going to take a couple of minutes just to get going, and then we'll start. I'm going to make sure that everything has started up okay. Why is it giving me Restream is not too happy? Oh, this says bitrate less than 4,000. Oh, for X. I don't care. Don't care about that. Pause my YouTube. How's everyone doing? It looks like everything's going okay. Let me know if there are any challenges. I think we're going to be at the mercy of the network weather, internet weather, like we were before. And speaking of weather, up here, I now have a window cam, which I was thinking about doing. So I used to have catcam. There's no longer catcam, but now we have window cam, and I'll talk about that a little bit because I'm quite excited. I feel like I've upgraded my streaming setup a little bit, and that's awesome. First, some hellos. So hello to DCD, who says hello, deep divers. David in the YouTube chat, also note taker, so thank you. Hello, Yanni. Hello, Unexpected Maker. Hello, Hams Labs. Hope all is well. Pretty good. I think I'm the least sick of my family, which means I feel okay, but my partner and my son don't feel quite as well. Love the factory. Hello, Mark. Why can't I hear you? Oh, you muted me. Yep, that would do it. Jeff says, hi from LA. There was an earthquake, 4.5 about 10 minutes ago. Did you feel it, Jeff? Does that mean you felt it? Unexpected Maker says this is cloudy skycam, and this is what we like to. I would consider partly sunny, which is not a bad thing when it comes to Seattle in the wintertime. I will take partly sunny. I was like outside. I took a walk. I usually take a lunch walk, and it was like, oh, the sun feels so good on my skin. I know it's summer where you are, but it is not here, and so this partly sunny I will take. Never get used to them. I feel ya. I haven't felt an earthquake in a long time, but we do have them here as well. Oh, and it looks like my desktop audio is playing out of my speakers, so I'll just turn that off so you can't hear my bloops. Hello, C. Grover, and hello, ADCC, Bob, and Beata. I think I forgot to say Beata. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, let's get going, because it's been more than a couple minutes. So hello everyone, my name is Scott. I work on CircuitPython for Adafruit. If you don't know what those things are, CircuitPython is a version of Python, which is a programming language designed for Python is often used by beginners because it's designed to learn things as you need them, which is super cool. CircuitPython is designed for beginners into hardware world, and it's designed to run on small computers called microcontrollers. This is where I look at my desk and I say, here's one. So this is a Metro. Oh, I bumped my camera. I think I might have destroyed the HDMI cable to the camera is not too happy. So that's what happens. Here's a Metro M0. So this little chip right here is the microcontroller. They only cost a few cents to a few dollars. They're a great way to get into a full-blown computer, and it runs CircuitPython on it. The way that CircuitPython normally works, or often works, is that you plug a USB cable in, it shows up as a CircuitPy drive, and then you can edit your code right on the device. I was telling somebody, I was like, the idea that when you buy a device, your code lives on it and you can edit it on the device, it's just like mind-blowing from a ownership standpoint too, I think. So that's CircuitPython. Adafruit, this is an Adafruit board. So Adafruit designs, this is a circuit board. So when I say board, I mean like printed circuit board, where all these parts, like the chips aren't made by Adafruit, but they're kind of assembled into one unit that can then be used into bigger things as well, or bigger projects. That's what Adafruit does. And let me hold it right side up. So Adafruit designs boards like this. This is a Metro M0 Express, where you can purchase those at adafruit.com, get yourself into hardware and using CircuitPython. And that supports me because I work for Adafruit. And that's the YouTube channel that we're on as well. So that's what CircuitPython and Adafruit are. I do deep dives. Deep dives usually happen 2 p.m. Pacific on Fridays, which is right about now. I generally host them, but I have Tim, aka Foamy Guy, who's my backup and has done is so helpful being able to keep deep dives rolling even when I was on paternity leave, or like I was dealing with my mom getting sick as well. So thanks to Tim for being a backup on deep dives. I know he does more Python level stuff, but I hope that they're still like really fun and informative. They tend to be about 2 hours long. I am not known to be concise. And if you watched this before, also, I don't prepare a lot either. So we kind of go where the wind takes us. I generally am like work on what I've been working on the stream, but I'm also happy to answer questions. So if you have questions, I see Jeff has one there. Hello, Gary Z. Feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will talk about them. Try to answer them, that sort of thing. So I'm happy to take questions. You know, we got 2 hours. We can go off on tangents. So this is, I'm a core developer of CircuitPython. So underneath the Python level of CircuitPython is actually a bunch of C code that interfaces with the low-level hardware to do things. And so that's why it's called a deep dive, is that we're usually talking about C code and not actually Python code. We're talking about how the Python level stuff is implemented under the hood. So it is quite technical. If you don't know concepts or have questions, feel free to ask them. I'm more than happy to go over the basics, even if I've gone over the basics on previous deep dives. So yes, Jeff has a question here who says, we've talked about IDs and I guess you use Sublime Text. Are there CircuitPython specific plugins that know what is and is not CircuitPython? Or does everyone just use a Python language syntax completion? Others use different IDEs. So yeah, generally the language part of CircuitPython is going to match Python, but what's going to be different is the modules. So Python, the language has this notion of stubs, which are a way to tell tooling, including IDEs, like for a given module, what function signatures there are. So even if it can't give the whole implementation, it can at least give you information about, you know, like digital in-out has a digital I/O has a digital in-out class. So CircuitPython, when we build, we document the C implemented APIs in Python stubs, and then we do package those and put them on PyPI. So if you have an IDE that can use Python stubs to do better autocomplete, you can usually do pip install CircuitPython-stubs, and then you'll get those in. There was just a change that that Justin started and Foamy Guy finished up that includes the board module, and the board module is unique because the board module varies per board because it includes pin names and bus names and stuff like that. So you could take a look at that. Zarnlin is also pointing out on the Discord that Visual Studio Code has somebody has created a CircuitPython extension that will do a lot of that for you. So that's, if you use VS Code, you could take a look at that. I know that the stubs, I think, were also tested in pycharm. And I think there is a learn guide for that as well. Yeah, so the board stubs are very, very, very new. Let me switch to, let me just show you, well, I guess I'll talk to the cameras in a little bit since we're talking about something else, but I can do full screen window cam. It's actually quite nice right now. It was rainier earlier. But let's go to the desktop. And I think I'll have to scooch this. This is my window that I look at off the screen. So if we're just at learn.adafruit.com, which is a great place to get started on projects, you can search for pycharm. And I think that it's actually in this Welcome to CircuitPython guide. Creating and editing code, no. Mu editor is what we recommend first. Jeff says, I still miss the kitty cam. I know, but the kitties aren't here anymore. I think under advanced setup, there is pycharm in CircuitPython. So this is kind of like how you can set things up. And I have not done this, but somebody else has. So if you use pycharm, which is a very popular Python editor, you can take a look at that. And I'll just pop this right in the Discord. All right. And I have a little more room. So I actually had this window open all the way from last week. I've been doing a lot of the same work. Any other questions, or should I talk about the improvements to my streaming setup that I've made? A remote kitty cam. I do actually have, we have Google Home cameras at the house, but I don't know if the cats sleep within range of those. Zarnlin says, I tried out pycharm, but I'm afraid I'm addicted to Visual Studio Code. It's good. I'm glad you found a tool you like. So, improvements, says Love the Factory. Okay, so I did a few things. Last week I had mentioned I would love to find webcams that work better. Like I was talking about, like the former kitty cam had, ooh, this is good. The roofer just emailed. That's really good. I was meaning to email him. So the former kitty cam was a C920, I think, which is like an old Logitech, but like used to be super reliable. But if you've watched before, you know that I never could get it to work when I wanted it to work. And so I, let me just pull up. I went to the wirecutter because I love the wirecutter. And here's the best webcams one. And I was like, I need to try again because I really would like to have more camera views. One being the window cam to replace catcam, and one actually being a desk cam instead of the overhead cam. David says, we need to find a way to get the cats near the camera at home. Maybe a remote food distributor. Oh, they would love that. They would love that. My partner's at home right now, though, so I'm not sure she'd like if, like, randomly the, like, noise, there came noise and stuff. So I was looking at their recommendations, and the Brio is $130, and it's Logitech. And I didn't really, because most of the time they're shrunk down. And so, and I stream at 1080p. Did you see that they reviewed wirecutters recently? I did not. That's kind of hilarious, though. Hi, Paul. I feel like that's one they should release on April Fool's Day. Like, that would be a good April Fool's Day joke. So the Brio does 1080p, which is kind of the max of really what I care about. But I decided that I didn't want to go. It was a little pricier than I wanted because I'm not, like, the main camera here is really good because it's not actually a webcam. It's like a Sony ZV-1. So that one I don't need. I don't need to replace the main one. But if I could find a cheap one that I can move around. So I actually went with these Abnker PowerConf C200 2Ks. Are your cams in Apple or Linux? So it is Linux, and I'm using V4L2. Have you encountered the issue with too many cams on the USB bus? So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 video streams coming in, and I think they're all still working, knock on wood. So I went with these Anker PowerConf C200s because they're their budget pick, and they can do up to 2K, which I don't actually want to do 2K, but one thing I was thinking is that I'd rather get a USB 3 capable webcam instead of a USB 2 one. So by knowing that it supports a high resolution, I'm pretty sure that it's like in USB 3 land instead of 2. So I went with these, and then you can actually buy them refurbished off Amazon as well. And so I actually, they're like $45 a piece off Amazon refurb. So I got one, tested it, and originally it was weird. I couldn't quite get it working in OBS, but then I realized that I had it on the YUV setting, but you can actually, these cameras support H.264 encoding. And once I switched it to H.264 encoding, which is like super common and probably what this stream is being encoded with, once I switched it to that, I could do 1080p and it looks just fine, or at least good enough. So this main cam here, and let me just, I think I have, so this camera here is, it's in, so it has this like eye tracking mode. So this is a really good one. I really like this. It's got great focus. Like it does eye tracking, but it also has a product showcase mode. So that's been really good. That's been the same. And now we have window cam, which I just got like 2 days ago. So this is one of these Anker cameras, just like literally just set up next to the window, and it's getting nicer outside, which is cool. And then I also have a bench version. So here we go. And this is part of my bench. And this is the other Anker one. And I have a version of that with the desktop. So this is like, if you want to see me like, oh, I pressed the button on, so this is like the board I was testing with. So you can kind of see there. And then I also have the overhead, which may or may not be working. This one has a little more trouble. And hopefully I won't crash. So this is a Hovercam Ultra 8 that I've had for a while, but sometimes it's less reliable. Unexpected Maker says, is the Sony running as a USB webcam or via HDMI? It's going via HDMI. So there's a, I forget what the capture name is. Magewell. There's a Magewell USB 3 capture thing that is the HDMI for the camera, for the Sony's running into. So all that set up for 2 hours streaming a week and some show and tell presents. We're lucky. Well, I didn't spend all that much with the new cameras. The final thing that I did is I actually bought a new graphics card. I was running an Intel A770, but I was having a bug where if I like remoted in from home and then came in and turned my monitor on, the screen wouldn't resume. So like the Intel drivers are just not quite as polished as the AMD ones on Linux, and so I was tempted to get a 7600 XT Radion, but the reality is that because this is the Anker webcam, I'll go back to the desktop. This is the Anker. It's the PowerConf C200 2K. Is what I picked up. I don't know if they're available in Australia, but I mean, we'll see how they do today, but I think I'm optimistic. So I ended up, I realized I didn't actually need a high-end graphics card. The main reason I wanted a new graphics card is one, this bug so that the screen would turn on, but two, doing the like offloading, encoding, and decoding to the graphics card would be nice. And it hasn't worked with Intel through OBS kind of in a year or more. But previously, before the Intel, I had used an older Radion. And so I actually bought a Radion 6600, which is basically the bottom of the bottom or near the bottom of the previous year's line. So it's not the newest one, like the 7000 series is the newest. So I got a 6600 to go in here, and it's been working pretty well. So this stream is actually being encoded through that card, which is great. And hopefully it's helping with there's at least two H.264 streams coming in from the Anker webcams as well. Are they on the same USB host controller or different host controllers? I don't actually know. At least the hover cam and the desk cam are on the same host controller because they're on the same USB hub. Let's just take a quick, let's just USB TV, take a little bit of a gander. So here's some USB-C video coming in. I don't know what is how do I get the names in here? Here's more UVC video, but it's only 480. I don't know, it's a good question. David says, it's weird how much pixelation your webcam is getting. Rest of the screen is fine, so it's just the feed from the webcam. This webcam is having pixelation. I don't see it on my side. Is that in all views or just this one? It could be the encoding. Broken Hip Shot says, yes, that webcam. Huh. It's showing up pixelated. Can I turn it on so I can see what you're seeing? I don't know. It could be an encoding thing sporadically. All right, well, I'll take a look at the YouTube recording after the fact to see how it is. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't see it in OBS, but it could be. You're moving in the webcam, the screen is static. Beata says, I seem to recall there's a bit in the USB video spec where the device announces its estimated bandwidth use, and there were some free cameras mostly that didn't do this or did it badly. I have no idea if that's the problem. Yeah, I don't think they're all on the same host controller, but I'm not positive. The Magewell and the window cam are on plugged directly into the tower, which may or may not mean they're on different host controllers. Hopefully they are. I definitely wish they would be more forthcoming about how, like, which plugs were on the same host controller. Zarnlin says, you said your face cam is HDMI capture. Is the capture itself a USB capture or a card like Blackmagic? It is a USB capture card, or it's a USB capture device. So it's got like a little short USB 3 cable that it hangs off of. Yeah, interesting. I wonder why that I'm getting a little pixelated. Okay, and then there was one other question that I skipped over because it's a little bit unrelated. Hamslab says, speaking of cameras, I asked a tech question about an Adafruit product a few days ago and I haven't gotten an answer yet. I'm using a spy camera from Raspberry Pi and I need to know what camera module it uses. I'm using it with a Rock Pi board and it's not working, so getting specifics will be helpful. Can anyone help me? I think that's the spy camera for Raspberry Pi is probably, is that an Adafruit product or is it a spy camera? So it is an Adafruit product, it's not a Raspberry Pi one. usually there will be notes there. And sometimes there will be see it here. Yeah, good question. I don't know. Lady Ada probably knows, but yeah, Lady Ada probably knows, but she's been pretty busy the last couple days. So hopefully she'll get back to you when she's got more time. Mark says, I should get a new webcam, though lately the only thing is reason to do it is from coming on show and tell. Okay. I had trouble with 4 USB cameras, same model on the Raspberry Pi, but good question if it's USB driver or streamer that was glitching. Actually, now you're moving your web browser pages. The pixelation is on that too, so maybe it's OBS or your ISP feed. Yeah, well, the ISP looks like it's doing a lot better than it was. Like 2 weeks ago, where we were like getting like really low frame rates. Encoding issue, I guess nothing horrible. Yeah, so I might be able to tune my encoding settings. Unexpected Maker says, is your Sony the ZV-1, the model ZV-1F, or the ZV-2? It's old enough that it's not the 2. Let me pull this off to the side and I can look in my Amazon history because I know I bought it off Amazon. Actually, I'll look at my orders. So I'm just looking off screen here. I think it's the it's the regular ZV-1. Yep. Vlogging or digital version? I don't know, but I do have the screen flipped out so I can see it. Encoding issue, nothing horrible. Yeah, sorry about the encoding. I'll have to take a look. I guess I could tell you what my settings are, but I don't really want to try changing them. I'm doing Navi 23, constrained baseline, level 4, 4,000 kilobytes per second at a 2-second interval. So I guess I'm on the constrained baseline is the default, which is going to be the most aggressive, and then there's a main and a high as well. So maybe next week, I don't want to mess with it now, but maybe next week before I start, I'll give it a shot. And maybe I can also do test recordings, so I'll take a look there too. So sorry, well, for now, let's just go with it. But next week, I'll play around with it a little bit. This is just first test run. Yeah, Unexpected Maker, I don't think there was only one version when I bought it. I've had it long enough but yeah, to me, the focus of it has been great. Yeah, the focus is the reason that I've been really liking it. And I'm excited about finding these Anchor ones as well, because they seem to be working out. All right, any other questions before I go over kind of what I've been working on? / get back to work and work on it some more. And I'm hoping the captions are working on YouTube as well. And a 4K version. Yes, I love the focus and eye tracking, thinking of getting one. Yeah, I'm not worried about 4K, but do the newer ones also do USB 3 directly? That would be nice, because the Magewell itself is a couple $100 at least. yeah, you know, I'm happy to be. How long you take to ship to USA, and what are delivery charges? Oh, to UK. Mohammed, I'm not sure. I'm in the US and I haven't paid in a long time, but actually there's probably folks, maybe there's still some UK folks that are up and will be able to tell you. You could also email support@adafruit.com and hopefully they'd be able to tell you as well. Tyeth says, have you seen the Logitech Reach? I did briefly, but yeah, I see it's like $300. It was like way more expensive than what I wanted, especially for like a view that most of the time will be up in the corner. Like up in the corner here, it's like 480 by 270. Like I don't need it. I don't need it to be that. Yeah. David Smirgs in YouTube also points out there are UK resellers of Adafruit products. Pimoroni is one. And Zarman points out another camera there. Broken Hip Shot says Pimoroni and PyHut are other folks that you can take a look at. And I'm sure DigiKey ships there too. I don't know how that would compare. They're also in the US. Okay, so if folks have questions, feel free to ask them when you have them. I like that question. I'll try to do my best to answer them. But I think what I'll do is I'll start talking about what I was working on before the stream. So I talked about it before already, but I was redoing. This is kind of where I was last week as well. Is I redid a number of the internals on the Espressif chips to use the newer APIs that were added in the ESP IDF 5.0. I talked about this last week. I actually read, so I will switch to the desktop and show this page. So I actually read through this and started adding more. So Implementer's Guide is a guide I'm working on, and I remembered today that I mentioned I'd ask about doing this not off, or I would ask about moving it off of Learn, but I forgot to do that. So that's something I'll still talk about. I don't know. I kind of do like it on Learn, but we'll see. So I read over this. I found some typos. I've been fixing some of it, and I've been adding to it earlier today. And basically, there's a number of modules that I need to retest because I changed the implementation. And so while I'm retesting it, I'm working on the Implementer's Guide. So the Implementer's Guide is the goal is to talk about how CircuitPython modules are implemented internally, what some gotchas are, and kind of like basic things that you can use to validate that it's working as expected. So the one that I've been working on right before the stream is Pulseio. And Pulseio is a module that is like trying to do microsecond level pulse capture and generation. This is something that maybe if you're used to Arduino that you would just bit bang yourself, where you would literally write Arduino code that sets a pin and then waits a few microseconds and then sets it low. But CircuitPython makes that more difficult to do because one, the VM takes longer to go from statement to statement, like because it's not precompiled. And then also because Python is dynamic memory, whenever you're running code in CircuitPython and MicroPython, there's a risk that you will hit a case where an allocation is attempted but fails. And when a memory allocation fails, it goes through this process of collecting and sweeping away all of the objects that are like no longer active. It's like a GC collect. And what that is doing is that it's finding all this it's finding all the spots in memory that it thought might be in use still and marking them explicitly as free so it can reuse that memory. Hi, Timon. Oh yeah, and Tyeth, I think Tyeth is UK side. Yeah, Unexpected Maker says the Logitech Reach looks awesome from a usability point of view, but not available yet. Yeah, how many of these Anker ones can I buy for that price though too? Ty says usually cheaper to go UK reseller or DigiKey free shipping over £33. Otherwise, make sure to play with basket quantities. More quantity sometimes equals less shipping, and Adafruit stores as it varies a lot between $18 and $46. David says the problem with UK resellers is that they cherry pick the products they follow, and it takes time between availability on Adafruit and availability on UK shops. So if you want the latest products from Adafruit, you have to be lucky and wait. But they sometimes have stock of old products or products not available anymore. And after some time, they will make a discount if they don't want to keep following a product. Yeah, so that I think that's typically like downsides of resellers is that resellers, I think, pretty much can buy from Adafruit once it's listed on the shop. And in fact, I think sometimes they actually limit resellers for the first batch or two. So yeah, if you want something new, you're going to have to get it from Adafruit. But yeah, for stuff that's been out a while, resellers can be the way to go. Okay, so so pulse out and in are the things that I've been working on testing, and specifically I've been trying to get pulse in working. And what I realized is that I could test pulse in with PWM out. And then there's, once I can kind of confirm that pulse in is working, then I can use pulse out connected to a pulse in to like verify that pulse out is working as well. Does that make sense? So that's what I've been doing right now. I got it working. One thing I've been running into is that the new ESP IDF APIs take in these config structs. And when I kind of like sketched out all the code, I didn't fill those structs out enough. So what's happening is when I run the code, it doesn't actually run. It throws the IDF throws an error. Yeah. David says, I gave up waiting for the 8x8 trellis to ever come back into stock. The 8x8 like rubber button trellis. Yeah, I mean, the last 2 years have been really, really bad for keeping things in stock just from the like chip shortage and related stuff. I think we're finally getting through those weeds, but yeah. If you ever are waiting for something to come in stock at Adafruit, make sure that your email is signed up to be notified, because we actually will like prioritize, like use that as a like rough signal for like what we should get back in stock. Yeah, those 8x8 trellises are cool. I've been meaning to get back to that. I want to do like fake synth stuff at some point. Okay. So let's just do the pulse in testing I was doing. So here's the test program that I was doing. The about pulse length. So this is how I'm using PWM out to test pulse in. So let me switch to my bench cam, or I could use my overhead cam. Actually, overhead cam's like on the right spot. So this is the board I'm using. And come on. Sorry, let me lock the focus. That should be it. Look okay? Yeah. Okay, so now when my hand's there, it shouldn't change. Or not. I can't see if it's locked or not. Okay, so this is just an ESP Devkit M. I have this label on here that it's an S3. You can't read it. It's an S3 Mini and 8, so it doesn't have any PS RAM. But I when I'm doing ESP work, I love their new dev boards that have the dual USB. And the reason that I love that is because I have debug prints coming out. Oh, you know what? It's focused on my chair, isn't it? Let me try it again. There, that's better. Okay, so now maybe you can read it, although it's probably upside down. Which I can also do. There. So that's the way I'm seeing it. So these dev kits from Espressif, they like, to me, they finally found a format that's great. These dual USB ones are awesome. When they first released the S2, which was their first chip with native USB, they only broke out the non-native USB. So I had to make, I made this like board that went kind of on the other pins and broke out the native USB. But they pretty quickly came up with this design where one of these USBs is to the native USB of the ESP, and one of these is to an external serial to uart converter. And it's great for doing low-level CircuitPython development because out the uart you can, out the uart you can read the debug output. So if you do a debug equals 1 build of CircuitPython, it will automatically output all of the IDF logging to the uart. So that's great. And then the other one is native USB. And the native USB port switches modes depending on whether it's in the bootloader or not. So you can leave kind of everything connected and switch between bootloader and CircuitPython. And I'll show you that. So here, now my windows got all messed up. And this has has my desk cam instead. Maybe I'll switch that. Let's turn off bench cam, and that leaves. Hover cam. Hover cam is tiny. Let me edit that. Hi, Dishipu. So we want, what was it, 270 by 480. Bottom right. I was just doing this. There we go. All right. With Memento, you can make an auto out of focus camera. All right, so the setup that I have here is, and this is kind of like been rotated a bunch. I accidentally closed the main one. Anyway, so this is the ESP logging. So this is coming out the uart line. This is the CircuitPython logging, or the CircuitPython serial connection. And then this one is the one where I actually build. And so right now you can see that CircuitPython is disconnected because if we look down here, it should be in bootloader mode. And I don't know, it looks like it didn't start, which is weird. So I will, so I'm using the boot button and the reset button to put it back into bootloader mode. And it should wait. And then I will flash it. It seems weird. It says it's waiting for download. Did I bump it? Check the port and see if it's correct. Okay, so it's not seeing, maybe I bumped it. Oh, it just blinked like it was running CircuitPython. Yeah, so maybe it was bumped. So there, that looks better. There we go. Zarman says, my memento is here, but just not unpacked it yet. This Saturday, I will do a mail call on my channel where I unpack all my new Adafruit goodies. Nice. Feel free to post a link to that, or when you start streaming, feel free to drop a link in live broadcast chat that you're doing it. It's totally okay to invite other people. Okay, so it loaded the new firmware, and now I'm going to hit the reset button. And this is why I feel like showing the overhead is kind of helpful. So it auto connects to Wi-Fi. And then the serial link actually came up too late to see the output. But I have some debugging output here for the durations. Of duration 0 is 250 and duration 1 is 750. But if I rerun it, we'll see we're getting 750 and 0. And the 0 is not correct. What we should actually be seeing is 250 and 750 come in. We should see 250 and 750 as the first two pulses. Now, what I had forgotten, like the main use of Pulsein is to read infrared signals. So there are infrared receivers that will output the pulses of does the memento do that crazy thing if you drop it in a bottle of pop? I don't think so. I think that's only I forget the name of them. But yeah, I think I know what you're getting at. I forget what they're called though. Yeah, so what looks like to me is that this is correct in my debugging printing, but it's not putting the right values in the output buffer for some reason. So this is the thing that I'm trying to fix. Now, what I'm trying to do is run it in this mode that I had forgotten about. So usually it's infrared or DHT sensors, where with DHT sensors you'll drop it down and then start it up again. You like drop the line down and then wait, and it sends the data back to you with a series of pulses, which is why Pulsein has this resume function that will actually do that, like actually command the line for a little while for the DHT sensors. But there's also this mode that I kind of forgotten about, honestly, which I have been thinking about this afternoon, is free running mode. So a pulse is half of a wave, or half of a pulse really, because it's the high portion and then the low. It's the time of the high portion followed by the time of the low portion. So with this test, we're having just two. We say max length is 2 by default. So the position 0 is the high pulse, and the position 1 is the low pulse. And if you've ever done servo work, when you output to a servo, you do a PWM and you change the duty cycle. So this pulse in free running mode allows you to basically read back duty cycle stuff. So if you wanted to be on the other end of like a servo, this is kind of what you would do, where you don't care about a series of pulses, you just care about the duration of the like last pulse that you've got. Mentos, that's what I'm thinking of. Or that's what David's alluding to, and I've forgotten. Thank you, Zarlin. Yeah, I've been to Maker Faire. I've seen him do that. So what I'm trying to test here is free running mode. So PWM in should be like constantly updating those two positions of the pulse in. And it is not in terms of percentage, it's in terms of microseconds. So pulse in and pulse out have microseconds as their kind of like unit. Although the accuracy may be like a few microseconds, not just one. In the code that I'm doing here, it's actually a 2 microsecond resolution because the RMT, which is the peripheral I'm using, which is short for remote, it's like designed for infrared remotes. It's 15 bits, even though our Pulsein stuff is 16-bit. So by running it at basically 2 microseconds per value, we get like our full range, our full normal range. Electronic Enigma Zone is Zarlin's channel. Okay, so the question is like, why is this not right? Why are we getting the 750? And actually, now that I think about it, so let's look at the implementation. So the implementation of stuff like this is in, so we're in, there's all these build folders, but it's CircuitPython, ports, Espressif, Common HAL, and then all of the different modules. So we're in pulseio.PulseIn. And actually my guess is that, so the RMT API for IDF5 has this callback that says, hey, I'm done receiving a pulse train. So it doesn't quite work for this free running use case because it actually like overflows. DCD says, what do you see on the logic analyzer? I realize that you're confident that PWM is okay. I could do that if we felt confident that USB is not going to completely fall over. Do we want to try to do that? I'm a little worried because I think that the Salier tries to grab a lot of bandwidth on the USB bus, so I'm a little scared. But yeah, so what we should see is like the PWM out starts, and right now it's on a quarter. I have it as at a kilohertz frequency, so you're going to see a pulse every 1,000 pulses per second, and the resolution the resolution that we can input is at a microsecond level, so we should be able to go from 0 to 1,000 that we should be able to measure with pulse in. So right now it's set to 250, so it's going to be high for 250 and then low for 750 of that, and then it'll just repeat. And I have it just running for a little while so that I don't trigger the overflow stuff. So the RMT is not actually going to give us results until we get to the end of, until we turn the PWM off and the signal's low for a longer period of time. Taya says, you make me think of the USB card of death that I recently read about on the register for testing Windows USB stack and hot plug support. Yeah. Oh, Zarlin, that's not a bad idea. The SIGROC analyzer I used for signal acquisition, I put on a dedicated Pi. You know, maybe that's the next upgrade for my bench, honestly, is splitting it out into a separate computer. That's not that bad of an idea. It would be hard to share on stream, but it's not a bad idea. And in fact, I actually have an oscilloscope here that maybe that's what I do. I could point the desk cam to my oscilloscope and then show that. Do we want to try that? I don't know how far into the setup stuff we want to go, but that's one thing we could do, is try to use the oscilloscope. I send the Pi output to a capture card that's in OBS. Oh. Yeah, we could try to do it with the oscilloscope too. But the idea is that in this guide, I'm kind of building up module by module. So yeah, like I want to assume that PWM out is correct because I have code in there already that you could like confirm that is. Okay, so I'm going to add a little more logging is what I wanted to know. So I'm curious about the number of total symbols. So symbol count, because I would expect more than just the one symbol. So the RMT considers symbols to be kind of a pair of pulses, and they can be, they have a 15-bit duration, a 1-bit polarity, and then another 15 bits and another one bit polarity. And if at the end of the pulse train, they set the duration to 0, which is invalid. You can't have a 0 length level, basically. So that's a signal that like you hit this like idle period long enough that you're done. So, you know, it's designed for remotes. So remotes are going to give you, I don't know, like 50 to 70 pulses and then nothing for a while. So that's what it's designed to do. This free running mode is kind of like a hack, and I'm gonna have to check out your channel, Zarnlin. It sounds like you've got a more detailed setup than I have. 2 capture systems, a Blackmagic for the camera, and a USB 3 capture for anything on the bench I want to capture their output. Okay, so I'm curious about symbol count, and then this position here. Ah, this is why it's messed up. So position isn't recalculated. So it's position here once and then not again. So that's my bug. So let's rebuild and check. So because I'm changing CircuitPython code, I can just do the flash command. If sometimes I will put debug code in the ESP IDF, and to do that you have to do a clean in flash because the 2 build systems are kind of disjoint. Ooh, Love the Factory says, with USB host support now in CircuitPython, is barcode keyboard to serial conversion easy? I haven't tried it, but I have a shelf on, and maybe that's what I should do. I have you can't see, I'm pointing. Oh, and I bumped my camera. This like HDMI cable became very touchy, which is bad. I gotta figure out why. Maybe it's just like slightly too long. But I have, over here I have a shelf that has a bunch of USB stuff I intend on testing with USB host. And I have a barcode reader there that I've been reading to, that I've been meaning to test. So I haven't tried it, but yeah, it should be easy. So CircuitPython with USB host will automatically support keyboards in theory. So you can give that a try. And Dishipu points out that there's a QR code library that works with the camera as well. Barcode your way to code.py file. Oh, DCD says, reading the code to find the bug, avoided the scope logic analyzer. Good question. Zarnland says, when you run the ESP32 SDK configuration tool and set a value, is that value written to the MCU or is it stored in the build tree? So when compiled and uploaded, it then takes effect. Yeah, so the menu config, I don't know if I've showed this, but the menu config command, which I assume is what you're talking about, this thing is, yeah, in tree. It edits your SDK config, which then gets propagated into the IDF at build time. So it is not dynamic. It is at build time. And in fact, I found them. Did I find it? Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure I spent a lot of the week debugging why the matrix portal didn't work, which I finally got it working. So I've updated protomatter, so it's, RGB matrix is kind of done, which is good. CircuitPython does a little bit more complicated thing where we try to keep track of SDK configs for different flash variants and RAM variants and different main chips. So we have like a post process that will take the output SDK config and kind of like split it amongst all of our different SDK configs again. But it still is build time that it applies. What we do when we build is we give like, if we have, 5 different options, like we'll have 5 different SDK configs that we set as defaults, and the ESP machinery will glom them back together. Sorry. So let's hit the reset button and we'll give it a try and see if we get better output, or the output we expect. So let's see, just here, and we got 250, 750, 250, 750, 27. I'm wondering if we could get it swapped, but I'm not sure. I think that's working right. Darlin says, if the Motorola symbol barcode scanner is any clue, it converts the barcode to a stream of key codes that software has to interpret. It depends on barcodes like 128A or 37. So if the key codes are not translated in the same way that normal keyboards are translated, then it won't work by default, but you still should be able to write a Python level driver for it. Yeah, Mark says most of the barcode readers I dealt with would act as a keyboard and type the code for you. So if in CircuitPython with USB host, if you just, I don't know if it ends in a new line, but it should auto configure it, and then you should just be able to do input parentheses in the same way that like it was waiting for serial input, because with USB host we automatically convert key presses on keyboards to characters into the serial stream. Mark says he used to work for the lottery with lots of barcodes. And Beato says, I was wondering if that was getting worked on. Okay, so this looks like it's working. These errors are a red herring for the NeoPixel output, so I'm not worried about those. And otherwise, we got what we wanted. Symbol count is 1, which is not surprising. And we got the 2 durations, 250 and 750. So I think that's all good. That is what I would expect. Now, I'm going to leave the debugging in, and I want to make it a little harder. So now I want to test pulse out into a pulse in. So I'm going to take my code.py, which I've lost. I guess I could pull it back up this way. So code.py. And actually, maybe what I want to do is let's just try like 800 and just confirm that. Oh, see, so that's interesting because now it's 200 and 800, and now the level has swapped. So this is a problem. Yeah, this is perfect. This is a problem that I've been meaning to document. So yeah, that's interesting that it came in that way. It gave us an error that symbols were truncated, but I think we need to pay a little bit close attention to the order that they come in. This is kind of annoying because we're only getting one symbol. I wonder if we need to set a minimum number of symbols, because ideally what I would do is I would get two symbols, and if it starts with a 0, but I'm looking for a 1, I just skip that first one, take the next one, and then the next 0, and I'd be aligned. So this is an interesting API design trade-off that is really obvious between the way that the underlying RMT ESP IDF works and the way Pulsein works. So Pulsein says, I promise you the first pulse is not your idle value, so it's high. And the second one will be low, and they'll alternate. Whereas in the RMT world, they actually like tell you what the polarity was. Was it a 1 or a 0? They don't have to do that synchronization because they provide whether it was low or high. But we don't, and so I actually need to be a little bit more specific. So I think one thing I need to do is I need to be okay. Like ideally I would get where I got one symbol. So symbol is a low pulse and a high pulse, maybe in different orders. I want to say I want a minimum of 2 because I might drop the first one. So raw symbol size, this is the minimum of the max length divided by 2. So my guess is raw symbol size is 1, and that's why the error is happening. ESP log I tag raw symbol size %d, and that's going to be in terms of bytes. Raw symbol size. But I think I want max length, which is going to be 2. Max length divided plus 1. I think is what I want. So let's give that another shot. Same PDF you use to switch between HIG keyboard and other modes. Okay, so we're just about written. And let's reset. And hopefully we'll get 2 in here now. We'll get 2 symbols instead of 1. And I guess we could use max to do it too. So let's just, yeah, so here symbol count is 2. Symbol count is 2, but we only printed out 1, which is weird. So we didn't go around the loop twice. But maybe that second symbol was blank. So symbol count, pause if we're out of space. That we, oh, you know what? We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that anymore. I changed that because we want to support free running mode. Good night, Hams Labs, or have a good nap. Naps are awesome. I don't fault you at all. I hope to take one tomorrow. I usually take one Saturday afternoon when Ari's sleeping. All right, let's try it again. It's possible, yeah, it's possible that... Oh, that's annoying. So if I'm waiting for the first pulse, I have to skip the 0 that I get in. Let's look in more detail at what I've got. Pulsein construct. So there's this idle state. Start length paused. And I think we need to like say find first. Find first equals true. And then for resuming, we also need it. And then we're going to add that here. And in our handler, and ESP IDF 5.1 simplified some of the code for LED control. Instead of pstrip A set pixel, it's now just LED strip set pixel. I haven't looked at that. I'm doing RMT level pixel stuff. So I've already done NeoPixel. I've already swapped NeoPixel to the new RMT stuff too, and this one's working. I tested it. Now this is something I did at home because Ari was a bit sick last week, so I was at home some, and I was doing testing. I have these two big front windows, and I have NeoPixel strips that run all the way around them, and I'm using a Feather S2 to do it. And I was seeing a lot of flickering of the colors, and I was hoping that the new RMT stuff would fix that, but it doesn't. And I think it's because the S2 is single core, and it doesn't have DMA to the RMT. So like RMT is like super inefficient for like things like NeoPixels because it takes 1 bit and it takes in 32 bits to produce the 1 bit. So like it's really like memory intensive to like expand it all out. And so what the IDF is doing under the hood is that you give it a buffer and a transformer from data to RMT symbols. And then as it needs to fill the buffer, it will do an interrupt and call the interrupt and then write to the fill back up the buffer at the RMT. Now the problem with that is that especially in the S2 where it's single core, if you have any Wi-Fi going on, it may prevent that update process for the RMT from happening. Whereas on the S3, you have a second core, so as long as it's the second core that's doing that conversion process, you're hopefully okay. And then on the S3 also, you can do DMA to the RMT as well. So if you have DMA, you can do a bunch of conversions, use more memory, and then set the DMA controller to do the copying for you instead. Yeah, so it's been on kind of my to-do list to verify that, like I submitted an order to Adafruit to get like a kind of a NeoPixel test set up in this space as well, so that I can test like I got one of the high density like half meters, so it's like 165 NeoPixels and half a meter, so that I can just test NeoPixel. Like I can test it with one, but I can't really see the flickering with one, because you don't run into, I guess you do, but you don't really run into this problem of like having to go through a lot of buffers on the RMT. So yeah, that's one thing I was worried about last week. Okay. Yeah, I almost went way in the weeds on NeoPixel, but I think I've gotten myself a little bit out of it. So I'm going to reset and let's see if we can't, I guess I didn't finish writing the code. I didn't write us the code. Did I actually compile it? I don't even know. So yeah, so we are seeing the symbol count too. And this is exactly what I wanted to see. Was I wanted to see that, okay, now I'm getting 2 symbols, and if I'm looking for So I haven't added this yet, but what I'll do is the first time I'm through that loop, I'll say, am I looking to find the first thing? If I am, double check that it's the right polarity. And if it's not, keep going, and now you found it. So that's what I need to add now, so that because Pulsein needs to verify, like looking at the output in CircuitPython, it should be 800, 200, not 200, 800. And that's because we're just not timing it right to catch it. Are you getting some of those new strips that puts NeoPixels on both sides of the strip? I did not order those ones. I ordered I was looking for the highest density at the lowest cost, which is silly because I don't actually pay for it. These are the new ones you're talking about, these double-sided ones. But I got the NeoPixel, I think it's 165. These are the LED per meter silicone bead LED strips. So you can see, yeah, I just ordered it. They're like super short, but they're like super high density. So it's 332 per meter, but this is only half a meter. So it's 165 miniature NeoPixels crammed together. And so it's nice and small, but it gives me that density to test kind of like the longer transmission stuff. So yeah, that should come. I guess it didn't ship out today, so it'll come next week. From Dave the Plumber, channel 12 volts for long strips is better than 5. I don't think it's an electronics thing. I think it is actually like a signal problem from the host controller. I've been meaning to test the ESP32 and the S3 should both be better because they're dual core. So I do want to take a look at that. And in fact, on the S3, we run CircuitPython on a different core from the Wi-Fi, but I'm not sure we have that set up correctly on the ESP32 either. Anyway, I'm in ESP weeds, obviously. And I'm trying to get myself a bit back to being rooted in the issues. So I'm trying to be more diligent about just getting these tests right. Okay, so this test that we have is not working because we're not getting the right durations back. So what we need to do is we need to update this. So, okay. We need to say if self.findFirst and symbol.level is not equal or is equal to the negation of self idle level, idle state, then we found it. I guess we can do the done break as well, but that would be weird. We'll just ignore that. And then we say self find first, false. And we need to do the same thing. This loop is a little weird. Although I think we can safely say that if it gets down here, self.findFirst is also going to be false. So if we skip the first symbol because it's not the right state, we can assume that the second one is. So I think that's okay. There's a possibility that we're not there, and then we just need to ignore it still. But I think that's right. Darnlin says, are you saying that this is a problem in the S2 but not so much in the S3? I thought the S3 had a dedicated LED pin for fast speed. Yeah, so I think the problem is in the S2 more than the S3. And the S3 has a dedicated LED pin for fast speed. I think the dedicated pin is using this RMT peripheral. When I was working on this earlier in the week, Lamore gave me a good pointer of looking at how WLED works, which is a very popular standard firmware for doing LED stuff, and it's usually on the ESP32. And they use the RMT peripheral, but they also have a couple other peripherals they use to do it too, because they're trying to get maximum output pins, whereas we don't actually care. Well, I think there are 4 transmit channels on the RMT, so you'd be able to do four NeoPixels concurrently. Although right now in CircuitPython, NeoPixel writing is blocking, so they would actually share. So you do multiple pins. It just takes a little. You can't do them. You can't update them concurrently. David says, should you try your Python test code on a known working platform to verify the expected result as a reference? Probably. I am terrible at testing though, and I'm like, because the numbers coming in are correct, and if we look at the output levels that the RMT is giving us, they are expected to. I'm not too worried. And this is something I need to add in that doc about like gotchas of like making sure that you get the right pulse at the start. Is a gotcha of Pulsein. So yeah, so we load it again, and let's just hit reset. So it's actually connecting to Wi-Fi, and then it ran, but we didn't see the output. But now we can see that, well, that symbol had 1, but then this symbol again did the 200, 800, but we don't actually know whether it was right. Oh, look at that. That's not right either. Oh, great. In this case, we got 800, 800, which is strange. So it's still not working. My code is not right. Which, I don't claim to write correct code, especially the first time. So why is that not working? It's probably because we're not, we need to say if not, find first. Or, so the or applies if the first one was false, or the symbol level is equal to the opposite of the idle state, then we do it. Okay, so I think the second time we were going through, we were still find first false. And that, you may wonder how I came up with that, and that's just experience. Like, knowing that my negations got wrong, like that test was wrong, is just something that comes easier with experience. And I'm talking like it's correct, but I haven't actually tested it yet. But yeah, don't feel bad if you don't have that intuition about what the problem could be. All right. But this is what deep dives are kind of about. Like, this is how I work. This is literally what I was doing. Like, the same workflow process is what I was doing when I was testing this earlier. $800, $200. And that is true, even though if we look here, we got the 200 first. So it is actually correct now. Great. Okay. So now that we've fixed that issue, let's find our code.py and kind of squirrel it away before we and put it in this guide. So let's put it here. So this is learn, and this is like basically the same editor you get on Adafruit Playground, which is super cool. So we'll just drop it in a code box, and we'll say it's Python, and then move it up here. So if you don't know, I should shout out Adafruit Playground because it's really cool. So Adafruit Playground is this, it's kind of the same code that runs learn, but it's a place for us that work for Adafruit, but also other people to put kind of like less polished information. Where learn guides, there's like a certain bar that we try to uphold in terms of like, you know, it's kind of like an end-to-end project, but there's some like there's also some like leads to take them other places. But the Adafruit Playground, you know, is kind of like learn. And this was a really cool tip that I just saw. I saw it on the Adafruit blog, actually. But Fede2, who is sometimes around, but I don't think popped up today, did this really cool post about how to fail with CircuitPython, and gives this tip of using using supervisor set next code file and then saying reload on error, which is really interesting as a way of like, usually CircuitPython will, when it crashes, it stops. But this is a way to tell CircuitPython, when you crash, just run me again, which I thought was really clever and a perfect use of Adafruit Playground. The one that the only one I've written up are these custom storage boxes that I still like have been raving about to people. So if you need a way to store a lot of dev boards, this is my go-to way of doing it. And in fact, now that we have Benchcam, maybe I should take a video of me folding some of them, because I have a box full of boxes that I need to fold. Mark says, I somehow broke one of my Playground pages earlier this week. Fixed now, I'm not sure what happened. So if you do run into issues, Playground is very new. So if you do find issues, let me know, because we can pull in some of the other devs if things happen. There was a brief moment where like people lost all their work, like really early on when it was there. Like I did mine on November 1st. So like right around early November, there was a couple cases where things got lost. But now I think it's really cool. They're like making it more visible, and they've got these badges now loved by Adafruit, which kind of promotes them. So those are cool. Faster SD writes with ESP32 and STIO. So I highly recommend as a way to... Mark says support helped fix it. Yeah, I'm sure they brought in the right people. Okay. So let's go back. So the editor is very similar. Like it's a lot of the same stuff that Learn guides use internally. So let's do a markdown test free running. So Pulsein's most basic mode is free running mode, where you want to measure to continuously measure the duration of 2 pulse components. You can use a PWM IO, PWM out to verify that this is working. Timon says, oh yeah, that's a great tip. Actually, one reason why I'm sometimes afraid of using CircuitPython for unattended little projects that I just want to keep going if they hit edge cases that I didn't anticipate, but also probably don't care much about. Yeah, and then it would be interesting to see a follow-up because you can use that mechanic to actually, you could have an error.py. So you could say set next code file error.py, and then there's a way to read the string value of the error. So you could write it to like an SD card and then loop back around again, back to your code.py if you wanted to do some logging like that. I don't think somebody's done it, but I think it's technically possible. Another thing you could do using that is like OTA Python files. So like you could say, I'm going to run this thing I downloaded from my trusted source for Python files. And if it errors, I want to go back to the script that downloads it, for example. There's all sorts of stuff you can do with that. And that set next code file was actually created by a community member, not by an Adafruit funded person. So it's a little weird and it hasn't been documented very well, but I think it is like super powerful. Okay, so test rerunning. Pulsein's most basic mode is free running mode, where you want to continuously measure the duration of 2 pulse components. You can use pwmout to verify this is working. Make sure that the first duration matches the length duration of the first non-idle pulse. This is like so in the weeds, but that's what this is about. So we'll drag this to the top, and there we go. Taya says, is there something like savemode.py that can be used in events of hard faults? So you can restart the microcontroller from savemode.py, I think, to get back to normal mode. I don't think you can, you won't be able to set, the, is that true? I don't think, I think savemode.py you can actually cause it to escape. I think you can go get out of safe mode from savemode.py. David says, you can use that mechanism to have your project run in loop on a silly error at the beginning of the code, and you get a hard time to stop it. So only enable that once you know most of your code is working. Yes, and that's why it's not. That's why it doesn't work that way by default. And does that run if a CPy hard fault happens? I thought savemode.py would run if a hard fault happens. I think you can escape it if you really want to. Like you can get from savemode.py to like out of safe mode. I think Dan's guide probably covers that. Like he wrote a learn safe mode. CircuitPython safe mode. Safe mode reasons. So you can detect from your savemode.py why you got into safe mode. You can get into programmatic safe mode. You can do manual safe mode, and then savemode.py doing a reset in safe mode. You can do so you can do a full reset if you want to get back into non-safe mode. You can do conditional resetting, so you can check the reason first. Yeah, so this is a good guide for safe mode. For sure, would love to see more like that for how to do simple error handling setups or cases where you just want to keep chugging as much as possible without writing the code itself to all too error handily. Yeah. Logging the edge cases to SD card would be rad. Sounds like that could actually be a useful core addition. I've thought about it. I've thought about doing more debugging to SD cards from the core. particularly for like somebody comes to us and says, after 3 hours, my ESP crashed. And it's like, I don't want to run something for 3 hours to be able to catch that. So I've been debating it a bit. I think, you know, at least on ESP where we have this UART output, it might be best to just have the UART output going to like some sort of, like SparkFun has these open logs that they've had forever. Like, but you could totally just make any CircuitPython board do it too, where you just like read the UART input and you write it to an SD card. Like it's super basic, but it's a great idea. Like these have these open logs, so it's just like you just spit out serial to it and then it logs it to the SD card for you. Taya says, is there a way to retrieve the previous backtrace on reboot? There is not. So if you hit a hard fault, you're not going to get a backtrace, unfortunately. You can get the backtrace if your program ends due to an exception, but you can't a Python exception. If you're running CircuitPython debug mode for ESP32, there will be a backtrace that goes out the UART, which is what I guess I didn't show that, but that is definitely something I've been doing a lot of. But you know, like that sort of thing is interesting. I think the idea with hard fault, with safe mode and specifically hard faults, is like we don't know if memory is correct anymore. So like even doing a backtrace is potentially risky. I don't know. There is an open issue for like how do we have better debugging for stuff like that. OpenLog Artemis. I didn't realize they had a new version. I wonder if they're doing it because it could do... like, at some point you're going to be bottlenecked on the SD card too. With SD, I meant more just any available flash storage. Worst case, the internal file system. Yeah, it's something we're thinking about. Had to decode a backtrace this week, and to have that shoved into NVM and displayed next reboot would be next level. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little torn between like having CircuitPython do it all on its own versus just spitting it out. Like, and especially if it's reproducible, then it's fine. You can have it just spit out the UART and then decode it. Yeah. Log rotation. Yeah, the problem is that, yeah, I was thinking about more general logging to like a well-known place. Like the external open log would give you just like all the logs. Whereas like if you're CircuitPython, we could do like an in-memory buffer that only on crashes gets written out. But even then, you're likely doing... You probably want printf debugging, and if you want printf debugging, you're going to be printfing to this buffer that you're not even seeing, and printf is slow. So I don't know. It's something I'm thinking about, but I haven't decided on like the direction that I want to take it. So yeah, if you have ideas, let me know or implement them. Anything you want to implement in this space, like ask first, but happy to merge stuff in. Okay, so we have 20 minutes left. So let's just, now that we've saved this off, let's actually switch from PWMIO to Pulseio. So instead of PWMIO, let's do Pulseout. And then we don't give it duty cycle and we don't give it frequency unless we want a carrier. So yeah, we don't want a carrier right now. That's right. So for infrared, you need a carrier, but if you set FFFF, you don't get a carrier. So no carrier for now. And we don't need to do this anymore because we're not going to do like free running mode. Instead, we're going to do, and you know what? I found an example of this in the docs. Because like the docs do have simple cases that I already did. Yeah, this bit here. So here we're going to do out send pulses, and I'm going to do a lot shorter pulses. I want to do like 200, 100. Let's push the 20, 10. 20, 10. I'm trying to make it like slight, like different numbers. 70. Let's adjust this. On, off, on, off, on. So we're gonna send that, no carrier, and let's for Pulsein, let's say max length equals 6. So we're going to send 5 pulses. We're going to say our max length is 6. And what we could do instead is we can do while in, I think, and then we can print in pop left. Let's get a little wild. So this is the other way that you can use Pulsein, where it's it removes the oldest one and makes more room. Can they be weird numbers like 13 or 47? Yeah, they should be able to. 47 and 13, let's try that. It should be microsecond level, but the implementation is gonna do even numbers. So we don't need to do a rebuild because this is Python. So let's just hit save and hope that it, oh, cancel. So we need to mount it. Click it so it comes up. And I know I'm behind on Discord. I'll look in just a second. Save. What happened? Okay, so I think it ran too quickly. So the reset port happened before we got our signals back in. So let's, we were a little too aggressive. So let's say I equals 0 and we'll count. So I plus equals 1, and then we'll say, you know, we're waiting for 5 of them. Right. Pop from an empty Pulsein. Okay, so we actually need to wait for it too. So we're getting faster than the transmit. So we should say while not in pass. So that should cause us to wait. There we go. Okay. Gone down the route of boot.json, savemode.json, and errors.json, code.py. One says, yeah, I think it's different use cases. UART if you want full verbose logging. Log file more for fatal crashes that are rare and intermittent. Yeah. I would think about implementing that if you're open to the idea. Yeah, for sure. And in fact, we have an issue for it where we're talking about better logging. I forget what it is. But yeah, there is one. I just forget what it is. Zarnland says, why are the numbers 202 instead of 200 and 48 instead of 47? So it is a little lossy. It's not gonna be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. So it's microsecond resolution or units, but it's not exactly spot on. So this is actually quite good. And then we should be looking at the, sorry, I'm taking it off screen. So we did 200, 100, 47. So the 47 is not going to work because internally we're basically dropping that ones place, like the 1 bit. So on the way out, it's going to be an even number. Or no, on the way in, it's going to be an even number. And so, yeah, there's just a little wiggle room. It's not going to be perfect. And in fact, for like infrared remotes, it's like within tens of microseconds is just fine. So even though the unit is microseconds, the accuracy is not going to be exactly 1 microsecond. So I'm actually quite pleased that they're within plus or minus 2. Like that's still quite good. That's more than enough for what we're doing. It is also interesting to me that they got there are two other pulses that it came in, which doesn't seem right to me because the PulseIn should, so the 72 is the last high, and then there's one really long, but that's reset port still happening. All right, I'm looking at off screen. So what I'm looking for here is trying to figure out raw size. Symbol raw size is 16. So we got 202, 100, 48, 14, 72, all good. But then we got these other 2 pulses. But we got these other 2 pulses after we had started resetting pins. And if you reset the pins on the outside of the chip, basically you can cause internal signals to change. And so like these are noise. I wonder, let's just do while in, let's do another print. Let's just say extra pulses. There shouldn't be any. Print in. The underscore is because regular in is a keyword. So let's take a look here. So we got 1 extra pulse for a pulse that's like as long as it should get, which is not the end of the world. But we really shouldn't, I guess we shouldn't do that. So that's caused by this 0 here. That 0 is saying like the underlying RMT has an idle. And maybe this is all right. We could just set find first again when that happens. And it would ignore. So let's do this test. DCD says interesting 16-bit number 0xFFF. That's right. So the durations are 16-bit microsecond integer. They're 16-bit unsigned integers that represent microseconds. So for any pulse that goes higher than that range, like the 65 milliseconds, it gets capped at the maximum number. And you could see that in here. Well, the RMT is doing it itself. But I think, actually, let's take this. I wonder if we should. I think it's fine. I think it's fine to have that extra one. But what we don't want is to see another low one. We want to set fine first. We want to make sure that the next, like if we hit that state of like it's low for a long time and then we read again, we want to make sure that we're reading the next pulse. So let's just do a second read. Let's just do this again, and we'll just do like one. What's a number that's different enough? Like 155 pulse. And now we want to do this again. Actually, you know what? We could just do this. Wait for that pulse to come in, print it, and then print the rest. So we just want to make sure that like we're not having extra pulses that would mess up logic that's kind of keeping track of which one's high and which one's low. Which I think is, this is correct. So let's add another. Right, so this is right. What if you change max length to 5? It should still work with 5, although maybe it'll get dropped. That's a good question. But max length, you know, I think it might error. No, it didn't error. I wonder if it should error. I wonder what we should do is we should make max length forced to be even. And that way you're, even if you're overwriting, you're not toggling, or you're always, if it's even, you always know the 0 thing is going to be the right polarity, which I think is what you would want. And that's a change to shared bindings. So let's just do that. Which I think makes sense to me. Pulseio.PulseIn. All right, if folks have any other questions, now is a good time. Max length, maximum number of pulse durations to store at once must be even. So that pulse polarity is consistent. That makes sense? Pulse polarity is per index. Yeah, it's a little weird. Like it defaults to 2. I don't know if we have a validator that you know what, instead of validating it, we could round it. But no, I think I'll do that. If size t max length is equal to this, and then I wonder if there's a checker for this already. Maybe not. Arg check. Parse all. Validate int. Greater than, less than, between, different types. Length must be at a range. No. Do we wanna? MP raise value error varg. Oh, it is. Translate. Q must be even. Will that translate okay? MP Q string max length. I feel like we have other warnings like this already. Let's see. Event. No. Divided by 2. I'm like trying to divide. Scale dimensions must divide by 3. No, I don't see what. David asks, would it not be that if odd rather than even, you flip the polarity at the end and reset fine first? Yeah, we could do that. I think it's simpler if we just require it to be even. I mean, we will break stuff. Like maybe there's a chance somebody gave it an even number or an odd number. But yeah. So DCD asks, what's the process when you add a new string to be translated? Good question. So translated strings are surrounded by this translate thing. There is a script that searches for all of the source code for this translate call. And then it's also a function that does stuff. So what happens is that you will run, you can run make translate at the outer level. This is the thing that finds these strings and then puts them in the .po file. So if I go merge, let me just look. So if we look at my Sublime merge, so this is the stuff that I'm currently working on. We can see this locale.circuitbind.pot was updated. These are just some things that got removed. And it doesn't include the new one, which I expected it to. It should have picked that up, and I'm not sure why. Oh, you know what? I bet it is. No, I saved it. I don't know. Is it build? Did I edit the file in the wrong place? I did not look for odd, I don't think. Odd length string. No. I'm actually surprised there's not one that's like modulo or something. Okay, so it's building, and I want to put this in boot mode because it's going to flash. Implicit declaration of translate. Oh, it's not translate anymore. That's why it didn't get picked up. It was changed to MP-ROM error text or something. There's really no other file. No other errors here. Yeah, NP error text. Sorry. Translate is the old way. It was switched to this NP error text because MicroPython started doing compression of error text. They do not. They don't do. They don't do translations yet, but it's kind of like the same mechanic. Okay, so we'll fix that. Does it make sense that it has to be a power of 2? I think it does, because if you run off the end, then you're going to switch otherwise. It's a weird thing. Like pop left works weird. Yeah, actually pop left messes it all up. Because if you call pop left and then get the 0th index of something, the 0th index will no longer be I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters if it's even. Sorry, I'm thinking this through. I don't want to add this requirement necessarily because it'll break it. If you don't use pop left, you probably want it to be even. If you're running in this like free running mode. If you're not running in free running mode, you probably gave it a max length that captures everything you want. And you probably want it to pause before overwriting. Because if you overwrite and then do pop, now you don't know where you are. I don't know. This API was designed like 5 years ago now. So I think somebody filed an issue said like when it overflows, it should pause instead. I think that's right. I think we should add a pause on overflow keyword arg. Yeah, so I don't think we should actually do this check, but let's just see if it works just to show. And then we'll kind of call it. So if while we're doing that, let's run make translate again just to show that it should actually get picked up now. So if we look here, yeah. So now it's picked up the new error message. I just had like the translate function thing was wrong. I'm out of date. So I'm gonna undo this because pop left makes it weird. Like it's a weird thing, and what we need is this like, hey, if you overflow, like don't mess it all up. But for now, I'm just re-implementing it. I don't have to fix all the warts while I'm here. So I backed it out, and now if I run make translate again, it should be gone. So when you add a new string, it goes into the circuitpython.pot file, and then the weblate picks it up. So weblate is the way that weblate. I think it's circuitpython. I don't know what it is. Here we go. If you just search for it. So this actually has kind of Git access. So once it's committed to the main repo, the text will show up here. And then you can sign in here with your GitHub account, make the changes, and then weblate will automatically create pull requests back to the main repo with the new translations. It's a little tricky. But yeah, that's kind of how translations work. I think that's about it. Didn't we decide that it was working otherwise? If I just do Control D. Oh, I'm still doing the version that's checking. Let's just All right, well, while we let this compile, let me wrap up. My name is Scott. I go by Tannewt online. I work for Adafruit, an open source hardware and software company based out of New York City. I work remotely, so I'm in Seattle here. And I do this 2 p.m. Fridays, 2 p.m. Pacific Fridays. If I'm not able to make it, Tim, aka Foamy Guy, will be in this spot usually. Thanks to Tim, as always. Thanks to DCD, who usually takes time codes. So if you're watching this later on YouTube and you see that there's all these nice time codes, that's DCD in the chat that does that, which is nice. Paul SK says, before you end, can you please show the ESP S3 dual USB in close-up, please? I want to order a few. I see some on Amazon. Yes, I will. If you want to join the Discord, you can go to the URL adafru.it/discord. And I'm still building and I'm still waiting to download. I will show a different one. So this is an S2 version. Let me gently press the product showcase button. So these are official Espressif dev boards, and they come in two forms. So this sticker here, the S2 Solo, is my label, but this label here shows you what exactly it is, and I'll read it off. It says ESP32 S2 Devkit C-1. So there's Devkit Cs and there's Devkit Ms. And this is an S2 version, but they also have S3 versions of this as well, that are really helpful. And they'll come, so the board is literally the same, and then they just swap the module. That's why I had to add this label for what module's on there. So they literally had the same board, and then the module changes for different amounts of like flash and RAM. So yeah, it was great that they went back and added S2 versions of this. So the S2 original ones were called Saulas, and they were fine, but they were not as good. They didn't have the dual USB. And now with these Devkit Cs and Devkit Ms, they have the dual USB, at least with the S3 and the S2. I don't know if the Devkits for the other ones are called that. There is a really good Espressif page for this stuff too. If you go to espressif.com and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, hardware dev kits. Let's look and see here. So here's the S2 series. So here you can see, okay, so there's S2 Devkit Ms with one plug, which I thought was the Maula, or the Sala. But there's a Devkit C. Yeah, see, so there's the older one, the Sala, and that they like straight up discontinued it. I don't know why the Devkit M here only has one USB. I would not get that. I would not recommend it. But this is the page. This Devkit page will show you like the two USB variants are the ones that you want. And you can see under flash and PSRAM the different module variations. Like this comes in a 4 megabyte flash only, but also, and then also a 8 megabyte flash plus 2 megabyte PSRAM version. So that's for the S2, and then the S3, you can see there's Devkit Cs and Devkit Ms. And they have all these different versions of them as well. So yeah, they're official. Yeah, so Devkit Cs for the C2s don't have dual USB. The C series does not have native USB, so it's not going to have two anyway. But yeah, I would say just generally like look for the two ports. And I'll send a link there. David says, did anyone ever build on your Polystack project? Not that I know of. I sold maybe like 10 tops before I decided that selling these things that nobody wanted to buy was not a fruitful idea. And I got the Adafruit gig and didn't know MicroPython until then. So it was, yeah, not that I know of. It was trying to fill a niche that didn't really exist. I'm not a great business person. I work much better in this case where Lamore and Phil have to figure out the business side, and I do I do engineering in my lane. So this looks okay. It's okay that it has a long pulse. I wouldn't expect. It's fuzzy enough. I think it's okay. Although this is interesting. That yeah, this is not right actually, because we got a 65.535 at the very start, which is not what I would expect. Although that's the overwriting, right? This is what this is why the overwriting happened. So if we go to code.py, and now we have to mount it again. I'm just happy it's not crashing. I spent all day yesterday dealing with RGB matrix stuff where it was like literally hard faulting. So max like 5. So this is what's going all the way around. So we're getting a long pulse at the start. And then we must still think, when we're doing that overwrite, we're still knowing that we have that many things. So we're getting it again, which is weird. But yeah, I think yeah, Zarlin is saying what I got to. It's just there's a delay. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Well, I'm pretty happy with that. I am going to do the thing I did before, which is testing pulse out, and I'm going to put it in my learn guide as a way to save it. Just save that in there. The next step I plan on doing is I'm going to actually, the reason I wanted to do short pulse lengths is I actually want to turn the carrier on and see if I can detect the carrier with Pulsein. Because like a 38 kilohertz carrier should give me like 20 something long pulses individually. So I think I can actually test the carrier portion using Pulsein as well, as long as the carrier is slow enough. So I'm worked on that. I have to do count IO and rotary IO still. I tested NeoPixel, I tested RGB matrix. So, and count IO, I should be able to test with pulse out as well. So I can say like, send 1 pulse and see if my count goes up by 1, which is nice too. So I am making headway, and I do want to like, I have to do bus IO, which I think is the thing that I need to do before I make at least parts of this guide public. But yeah. Anyway, that's that. If you want to support me, you can go to adafruit.com and purchase hardware there. And I will hopefully see you next week. I think I'm around. If not, I'll talk with Foamy Guy, and maybe he'll fill in for me as well. Thank you all. I'll see you on Discord. Have a great weekend, and maybe I will do a little window. Like, I'm about to go out for a run, and this is the weather while I do it. If it was raining, I probably wouldn't. But it looks kind of nice. And yeah, have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll see you